13-year-old girl is behind bars for stabbing her 44-year-old mother to death after having her phone taken away from her. At 12:33 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March, authorities responded to 23 South Sherman Street in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania after receiving a 911 call from a teenage girl, later identified as Latia Powell, who told dispatch that her mother Tamika Tucker was dead and it was all her fault. When officers arrived, they entered the residence and found Tamika deceased with multiple stab wounds to her neck, back, and a heavy flow of blood coming from her head. Officers followed a trail of blood to her bedroom and found 13-year-old Latia Powell sitting on the floor with blood-stained hands and said she was sorry for killing her mother. Officers did not observe any signs that the girl had been assaulted. "I killed my mum, and she'll never forgive me if she's alive," she told an officer. She's been led out of the house while standing on the porch. She said she stabbed her mother during an argument and threw the weapon on a neighbour's doorstep. "I don't have my phone because my mum took it before our fight, and I'm the reason she's dead," she said. While being taken into custody, she said she felt regret, guilt and self-disgust before being placed into the back of a police vehicle. Police also found Latia's 11-year-old brother with non-life-threatening stab wounds to the back and was transported to a local hospital for treatment. Investigators observed several kitchen drawers and cabinets were padlocked in the home. One drawer used to store cutlery had been broken into, with a padlock found on the ground nearby. Latia is charged with homicide, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and tampering with evidence. She's been tried as an adult and is being held at the Luzerne County Correctional Facility without bail. The investigation into the matter continues. Walmart employee 19-year-old Adrian Jelks is on the run after killing 19-year-old Antavius Holton and injuring a young girl in a shooting at his workplace. The incident occurred at around 10 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March at a Walmart located at 125 Pavilion Parkway in Fayetteville, Georgia. Surveillance footage showed Adrian wearing a blue Walmart vest inside the store, as police say he was working the location at the time of the incident. Adrian reportedly got into an argument with Antavius, and as Antavius was leaving the store, Adrian pulled out a gun from his vest and shot Antavius twice in the back. Within 10 seconds of the shooting, Adrian fled the scene in a car that has since been found abandoned. A 9-year-old girl who was also inside the store at the time of the shooting was also injured. Medics rushed Antavius and the young girl to a local hospital, where Antavius died from his injuries, while the child remains in a stable condition and is expected to survive. Police are still searching for Adrian, who's wanted for murder and aggravated assault. Fayetteville Chief of Police Scott Gray said that officers were able to identify the shooter through video and other Walmart employees. He said that the shooting was not a random act of violence and that Adrian and Antavius may have known each other. He added that the 9-year-old girl was an innocent bystander who happened to be in the Walmart and was struck by a stray bullet fired by the suspect. Another 19-year-old, Sandra Ramiro Nunez, was arrested the following morning and charged as an accessory to the crimes of murder and aggravated assault, though investigators have not disclosed further details of her involvement. She remains held in the Fayette County Jail. In a release, Walmart said, "We're heartbroken by what happened in a Fayetteville store Friday night and extend our sympathies to the loved ones of those involved. We're working with law enforcement to assist them in any way we can as they investigate. Anyone with information about the incident is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. The investigation into the matter continues." A Georgia man is accused of murdering his 2 young daughters after their bodies were discovered inside a burning vehicle. 36-year-old Adam Panzo was charged with felony murder, malice murder and arson. At just before midnight on Friday the 29th of March, officers from the Webster County Sheriff's Office and Fire Department and emergency personnel responded to a report of a car fire at a home on Miller Kennedy Road in Preston, Georgia. Once the fire was extinguished, firefighters discovered Adan's young children, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old girl, dead inside the vehicle. The father of 2 was arrested after allegations of locking his children inside the car and setting it on fire after a domestic dispute with his wife. It's unclear what the argument was about. Adan is being held at the Webster County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. Authorities are investigating the fatal shooting of 47-year-old David Winchester Jr., who had been kidnapped just hours earlier. And just before 1 a.m. on Thursday the 28th of March, authorities responded to a report of a home invasion in southwest Baltimore, Maryland. At the scene, a woman told police that two unidentified men forced entry into the house and demanded money. They said they had a son, David, and would hurt him if the woman didn't hand over the money. Police said the suspects fled the residence in an unspecified vehicle in an unknown direction without the ransom. At 8:30 a.m. that same morning, officers responded to a wooded area roughly 30 miles away on the 900 block of Spa Road in Annapolis, near the Bates Athletic Complex, on a report of an unresponsive man. When officers arrived, they located a deceased man with a gunshot wound. The victim was later identified as David. His body was transported to the office of the Chief Medical Examiner to determine the exact cause and manner of death. On Saturday, the 30th of March, David's death was ruled a homicide by shooting. Authorities have not named the suspects or announced any arrests, as the investigation into the matter continues. 22-year-old Ariana Scott is behind bars after a 4-year-old son shot himself with an unsecured illegal modified handgun. At just before 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday the 20th of March, authorities responded to a report of a shooting at a home at 2212 69th Street in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Upon arrival, officers found an unresponsive boy with a life-threatening gunshot wound to his head. A child was taken to a local hospital for his injuries, where he remains in a critical condition. During the search of the home, officers found a loaded .40 caliber Glock handgun that had been modified into a fully automatic weapon using a conversion switch, and a shell casing was found in the child's bedroom. Officers also found a large bag of marijuana, a scale, and small baggies that is consistent with street-level drug distribution in a closet next to the 4-year-old's bedroom. Ariana told investigators that she was in her bedroom when she heard a loud bang in her home and went back to sleep. She said that when she later woke up, she called for her son and said he did not respond. She then checked his bedroom and found him lying in blood. Ariana tried to claim that she didn't know where the gun came from due to a felony criminal record, and told officers that the marijuana belonged to a boyfriend for personal use. Later, she said that the firearm was normally stored unsecured in a bedroom closet, and that she didn't know how the 4-year-old got to it. Ariana was arrested and booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on charges of improper supervision of a minor by a parent, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of a machine gun, illegal carrying of a weapon with a controlled dangerous substance, and possession with intent to distribute a Schedule I drug. Her bond has been set at $65,000, and Child Services has been notified. The investigation into the matter continues. A Florida woman has been arrested for a hit-and-run where someone was killed more than a year after it happened. On Wednesday, the 27th of March 2024, Dixie County Sheriff's deputies arrested Kimberly Ann Wiggins of Madison County. Authorities said that on the 18th of March 2023, a Dixie County resident was hit and killed on US Highway 19, north of Cross City, Florida. The driver then left the scene of the accident. After months of investigation by Dixie County deputies, they issued a warrant for Kimberly's arrest. Madison County deputies helped serve the warrant and arrested Kimberly. Kimberly's been held at the Dixie County Jail since her arrest, with bond set at $1 million. A Marin County, West Virginia woman has been arrested on multiple charges after escaping police custody earlier this year. On the 24th of February, Rochelle Piper was arrested after a traffic stop when she told police that her license had been revoked for DUI. Officers placed her in handcuffs and a restraint belt and brought her to the station for fingerprinting and questioning. A restraint belt is sometimes used in addition to handcuffs to restrain individuals and keep their hands close to their waist. While undergoing fingerprinting, Rochelle told officers that she needed to use the bathroom. An officer allowed Rochelle to use the bathroom while in her restraints and left to get his paperwork. That officer then heard the door slam shut and ran back to find Rochelle had left the bathroom and fled the facility, all while restrained by handcuffs and the restraint belt. The officer radioed Marin County 911 with her description, but Rochelle could not be found. On Friday the 29th of March, Rochelle was arrested for DUI, escape from custody, as well as petty larceny for the value of the restraint she was wearing when she escaped. Rochelle has been held at the North Central Regional Jail on a bond of $10,012. A teenager is behind bars for fatally shooting his roommate. At around 1 a.m. on Tuesday the 2nd of April, authorities responded to a residence in the 8500 block of Old Percival Road in Columbia, South Carolina on reports of shots fired. When deputies arrived, they were told by residents of the home that 18-year-old Amadeo Castillo shot Mario Ramos while he was sleeping. Investigators said that 3 other roommates heard the shooting, restrained Amadeo, took away his gun and didn't allow him to leave until law enforcement arrived. Mario was pronounced dead at the scene. Deputies took Amadeo into custody and booked him into the Richland County Detention Center on charges of murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The motive of the killing is unclear, as investigation into the matter continues. A mother and a boyfriend are behind bars after a 4-year-old boy died with signs of malnourishment and several injuries. At around 12:55 a.m. on Wednesday the 27th of March, authorities responded to Madison Medical Center at 611 West Main Street in Fredericktown, Missouri, in reference to suspicious circumstances of an unresponsive juvenile. Medical staff informed responding officers that the child was dead and showed evidence of abuse or neglect. The victim appeared to be malnourished, and an officer noticed bruises, abrasions, and lacerations all over his body. Authorities apprehended the mother, Riley Ferraro, at the medical center. Officers also located the mother's boyfriend, Hayden Rosner, and brought him in for questioning. Authorities said that Hayden and Riley shared custody of the child. On the night of the boy's death, Hayden brought the victim to Riley unresponsive, and she rushed him to the hospital as Hayden stayed behind. Riley told officials she works about 60 hours a week, and Hayden served as the primary caregiver to the child. She said she started seeing suspicious marks and bruises on her son when Hayden started caring for the boy. Riley showed investigators photos of the boy's bruises and marks. Riley suspected Hayden had been abusing the victim, but didn't report it to law enforcement. She said Hayden tried to discourage her from taking her son to the hospital. When police confronted Riley about the boy's malnourishment, she said she noticed her son getting thinner, but Hayden believed it was normal. During an interview, Hayden told officers that the victim had temper tantrums. He also said the young boy mentioned he was experiencing stomach aches and issues defecating. Hayden said that on the 26th of March, the boy had a temper tantrum and threw himself in the bathroom. As a result, the boy allegedly hit his head on the edge of the toilet, causing his previous ear and nose injuries to reopen. Hayden told officers that the victim often fell and injured himself, but admitted after further questioning that he'd gone too far one time and lost his temper with the boy, not elaborating on the incident, but saying he has since reformed. He described another time when he was trying to put soap in the boy's mouth, and the boy fell during the struggle, striking his head. Riley and Hayden admitted to investigators that they were opioid addicts and often used drugs in the apartment where the victim lived. Authorities executed a search warrant at the couple's home and observed poor living conditions and a strong odor of urine, drug paraphernalia, and a sufficient amount of food supply. Officers said they found unprescribed ground-up oxycodone in Hayden's possession as he was changing into his jail uniform. Riley and Hayden faced charges of abuse or neglect of a child resulting in death and first-degree endangering the welfare of a child resulting in death. Hayden was also charged with possession of a controlled substance. Hayden's bond was set at $1 million, while Riley's was set at $500,000. Several months before the boy's death, in November of 2023, the Missouri Department of Social Services Children's Division went to the suspect's home, and the caseworker recommended that the boy not be left alone with Hayden due to his alleged drug use and unpredictable conduct. The investigation into the matter continues. Two daycare workers, 56-year-old Tanya Teresa Lapsley and 63-year-old Wanda Hearn Henderson, are behind bars for allegedly abusing a toddler girl in their care. Authorities said the women were employed at the Milestone Academy in Childcare, located at 1205 Asheville Road in Montevallo, Alabama. The listed offence date is the 13th of February. Investigators said the women slung, forcibly pulled, jerked, snatched and tugged at the 2-year-old girl, leaving her with marks and bruises while in their care inside the daycare centre. Authorities said the abuse happened on more than one occasion. On Thursday the 4th of April, the women were arrested and charged with aggravated child abuse. They remain held at the Shelby County Jail with bonds set at $180,000 each. A 56-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting a 44-year-old man during an altercation. At 9:12 p.m. on Friday the 5th of April, authorities responded to a report of a shooting inside a home along GW Drive in the Uz community of Whitesburg, Kentucky. When officers arrived, they entered the residence and found a man deceased with a gunshot wound. The victim was identified as 44-year-old Nicholas Allen Webb. Officials identified 56-year-old Rodney Lee Webb as the suspected shooter, and he was arrested on scene. Authorities said that the two men were involved in a physical fight, and the situation escalated when Rodney pulled out a gun and shot Nicholas. The victim's body was transported to the medical examiner's office in Frankfort for an autopsy. Rodney was charged with murder and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and remains held at the Letcher County Jail. The investigation into the matter continues. 35-year-old Pablo Padilla is behind bars for fatally shooting his 36-year-old wife Desiree Lasso. At around 5 p.m. on Wednesday the 3rd of April, Desiree was taken to the Sandoval Regional Medical Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico with a gunshot wound to her head. She later died at the hospital. Authorities said that Pablo, Desiree and their 3 children aged 1 through 15 years old were inside the vehicle driven by Pablo earlier that day as they traveled to Rio Rancho from Ribera to retrieve a vehicle that had been impounded by the Rio Rancho Police Department. The 15-year-old child told police that while traveling to Rio Rancho from Ribera, Pablo became upset with him, yelled at him, and hit him in the face. He said that Desiree intervened, and when she did, Pablo began yelling at her. Pablo pulled over near the intersection of Paseo del Volcan and Camino Encantados in Rio Rancho and retrieved an AR-15 rifle from inside the car and shot Desiree in the head. Pablo and the 15-year-old then struggled over the rifle. During the struggle, a second round fired. Pablo put the gun back in the car and drove Desiree to the hospital. During questioning by police, Pablo denied striking the child, but admitted making threatening gestures toward him. Pablo told police they'd been driving around at around 100 miles per hour to get to the impound yard before it closed, and that he and Desiree argued over the impoundment of the vehicle. He said that Desiree began striking and kicking him, and shouted, "Don't you ever hit my kid." Pablo told police that Desiree and the 15-year-old were fighting over the rifle and it went off, with a round striking Desiree in the head. Police searched the vehicle and located the rifle. During the examination of the firearm, police determined that the charging handle, sometimes called the bolt, had been pulled prior to discharge, indicating that the gun had been deliberately ready to fire. Because of this, investigators dispute Pablo's claims that the gun simply discharged during a struggle for it. Investigators also dispute Pablo's claims that the 15-year-old grabbed the rifle while inside the vehicle, because they believe the restricted space inside the vehicle would make it unlikely for the child to gain control of the weapon, such that he'll be able to shoot the back of Desiree's head. During the interview, police also located methamphetamine on Pablo. Pablo was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, possession of a controlled substance, receiving a stolen firearm, and several driving offences. He remains held at the Sandoval County Detention Center without bail. Pablo also has an active arrest warrant in San Miguel County after failing to appear for a hearing in a case where he is accused of possessing meth, being a felon in possession of a firearm. A trial in that case is scheduled to begin on the 24th of June. Pablo was also charged with child abuse in 2021 after he reportedly abducted the couple's now 3-year-old child during a fight. However, that case out of Rio Rancho was dismissed because the officer did not show up at court. In July of 2008, Pablo pleaded guilty to 1 felony count of aggravated fleeing a law enforcement officer as part of a plea agreement. A 37-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting a 43-year-old woman. At 10:48 a.m. on Wednesday the 3rd of April, Authorities responded to the red carpet inn at 560 Riverdale Street in West Springfield, Massachusetts, on reports of a disturbance. When officers arrived, they found a woman in the parking lot with a gunshot wound. She was taken to the Bay State Medical Center, but died from her injuries. The woman was identified as 43-year-old Angela Mercado. Upon further investigation, authorities identified 37-year-old Raymond Holguin as the suspect. Within hours of the shooting, officers arrested Raymond and charged him with murder. He was booked into the Hampton County Jail. On Thursday, the 4th of April, Raymond was arraigned in the Springfield District Court and was ordered held without bail. The motive of the killing is unclear, as investigation into the matter continues. Claudia Valley Diaz Bonifazi of Woodway, Texas is behind bars for abusing a young boy. Police said that a child in her care made an outcry to school officials, which prompted an investigation by Woodway Public Safety Department and Child Protective Services. During their investigation, authorities said they discovered several violent incidents where the boy had been punched, hit with various objects, and was also refused food for long periods of time by the suspect. Investigators said that the child's outcry stemmed from him arriving at school crying and telling staff and a counsellor that he was dragged to a bathroom by his hair, his head pushed into a toilet, and then forced to drink the toilet water. Police said that the child was missing pieces of his hair. On Wednesday, the 3rd of April, Claudia was arrested and charged with injury to a child with intent to cause bodily harm. The relationship between Claudia and the child is unclear. However, the boy has since been placed into the care of a family member for his safety. An 18-year-old woman is behind bars for fatally shooting a 16-year-old boy. At 11:58 p.m. on Tuesday, the 2nd of April, authorities responded to Frank Connor Park, located at the intersection of Spring and Gadsden Streets in Chester, South Carolina, on reports of shots fired. When officers arrived at the scene, they found an unresponsive teenage boy laying in the grass next to a playground, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Medics attempted life-saving measures, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The boy was identified as 16-year-old Donovan Browning. Upon further investigation, authorities identified 18-year-old Connie DeRose Miller as the suspect in the teen's death. The following day, Connie was arrested and booked into the Chester County Detention Center. Officers said that while taking out a search warrant, they found a significant quantity of marijuana and cash. Connie's charged with murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The investigation is still active, and additional charges and arrests may come with any future developments. A 47-year-old woman is facing felony drug charges following a traffic stop. At 3:16 p.m. on Thursday, the 4th of April, authorities stopped Jenny Maria Bater near the intersection of Central Avenue and West 5th Street in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Police said that a K9 arrived on scene and alerted on Jenny's car, and when they searched it, they found approximately 5 grams of suspected methamphetamine next to the driver's seat. A single blue fentanyl pill was also found under the front passenger seat. Jenny was arrested and booked into the Laramie County Detention Center for possession of methamphetamine and possession of a controlled substance third or subsequent offense. On the afternoon of Friday, the 5th of April, Jenny made her initial appearance at the Laramie County Circuit Court, where a bond was set at $10,000 cash. Her preliminary hearing is scheduled for the 12th of April. A 51-year-old man is behind bars for fatally stabbing his 72-year-old mother. At around 11:10 p.m. on Wednesday, the 3rd of April, authorities responded to an apartment at 4101 53rd Place in Bladensburg, Maryland for a welfare check. When officers arrived, they entered the residence and found 72-year-old Lorena Royster unresponsive in a bedroom with a handcuff on her wrist and a stab wound to her neck. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators also located a pocket knife, box cutter, and a screwdriver near her body. 12 hours before Lorena was found dead, about 40 miles east in Stevensville, Maryland, her son, 51-year-old Reginald England, was acting odd and jumped into Cox Creek and injured himself. An officer saw him, convinced him to swim to shore, and took him to the hospital in Anne Arundel County for treatment. He told police he was preying on the dock and gave them a false name. He was also wearing what appeared to be a woman's engagement ring. Authorities said that Reginald lived with his mother, and upon further investigation, they identified him as the suspect who fatally attacked Lorena earlier in the week. On Thursday, the 4th of April, Prince George's County Police arrested Reginald and charged him with first and second-degree murder. Authorities have not disclosed the motive in the killing. Neighbour Cornell Woods, who has lived at the village apartments for the last 18 years, was shocked and saddened to hear what happened. It's a quiet neighbourhood, never no problems. That's the most tragic thing I've heard since I've been here. I don't know what to say about people today. When I came up, people respected their elders, especially your mother. How could you do that to your mother? I can't put it into words, but it's real sad. I'll tell you that, he added. This isn't Reginald's first run-in with the law. He was previously charged with murder, kidnapping, and a slew of offences in Washington, D.C. for a killing in January of 2023. He was indicted in federal court in March of 2023, but in October of 2023 the case was dismissed because a surviving victim and witness in the case died. A man is behind bars for having sexual relations with a minor. Joshua Houston of Tomball, Texas has been charged with sexual assault of a child and solicitation of prostitution. The Montgomery Precinct 3 Constable's Office said they launched an investigation on the 3rd of April on a suspect who was accused of having sexual relations with a juvenile in exchange for money. Authorities said he was allegedly meeting with the juvenile in the Woodlands area, roughly a 20-minute drive from Tomball. According to the Constable's Office, detectives posed as a victim online, and the suspect arranged to meet the undercover detectives to engage in sexual acts in exchange for money. The suspect, Joshua Houston, was taken into custody upon arrival at the agreed location. The constable's office said he admitted to having sexual relations with the victim. Joshua was arrested and booked into the Montgomery County Jail, with his bond set at $105,000. A man is behind bars in a case involving a juvenile victim. On Tuesday, the 2nd of April, authorities arrested and charged 27-year-old Deprekus Montrell Perkins of Florence, Alabama, with first-degree rape of a minor. Police said that on the 10th of February, authorities began an investigation into the forced sexual intercourse involving a 15-year-old girl. Investigators said they were able to obtain additional information, which ultimately led to Deprekus's arrest. Deprekus is held at the Lauderdale County Detention Center without bail. A couple behind bars for the smothering death of their 6-month-old infant daughter late last year. On Tuesday, the 2nd of April, 40-year-old Jose Roldan and 29-year-old LaDisha Powell were arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and child abuse. On the morning of the 13th of December 2023, Faith Roldan died after she became trapped under Jose and some couch cushions at their home in the 800 block of Davis Street in Kalamazoo, Michigan. LaDisha fell asleep on a couch and dropped the infant, who landed behind Jose. He weighs more than 300 pounds. Faith was pronounced dead at the Kalamazoo County Hospital about an hour after the officers responded to her home. Authorities said that Jose and LaDisha heavily drank alcohol before their daughter's death. Jose stated that he fell asleep in the living room with his daughter, but woke up to find her unresponsive and wedged between him and some cushions. He then woke LaDisha, who called 911. Jose reportedly admitted to drinking about 10 tall cans of beer and smoking weed the night before his daughter's death. LaDisha claimed that she drank 5 twisted teas and some beer because she was upset with Jose for watching porn. Investigators said that video evidence shows the couple drinking large amounts of alcohol in the living room. Jose is reportedly seen laying down to sleep, with LaDisha seated next to his feet while holding Faith. LaDisha is then shown falling asleep when Faith falls and becomes wedged between her father and the couch's rear cushions. The video then shows Jose adjusting position and smothering Faith, who starts kicking and crying until she becomes motionless. The mother awakes and looks for the baby prior to giving up and making her way to the bedroom to fall back asleep. Faith's death was ruled a homicide by mechanical asphyxia. Jose and LaDisha are held at the Kalamazoo County Jail with their bond set at $100,000. A 42-year-old man will spend the rest of his life behind bars for shooting, beating, and suffocating a 31-year-old woman, then leaving her body in a car that he crashed while intoxicated. On Wednesday the 3rd of April 2024, Benjamin Wilkins appeared in the Nesbitt Courthouse in Anchorage, Alaska, and was sentenced to 75 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder of Jacqueline Goodwin. As part of a plea deal, prosecutors dropped charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and other drug-related offences. At around 11:40 p.m. on the 27th of June 2016, authorities were called to a car collision along DeBar Road in Anchorage, Alaska, near Alaska Regional Hospital, and determined that the car had crashed into and knocked down a light pole. The driver of the car, who was identified as Benjamin, was arrested under suspicion of impaired driving. Police then found Jacqueline's mutilated body under a sleeping bag behind the driver's seat while waiting for the tow truck. Her body was still warm, but she had no pulse and was unable to be saved. Investigators said that Benjamin shot Jacqueline in the stomach, severely beat her and suffocated her by taping her nose and mouth and placing a plastic bag over her head sealed shut with duct tape and a zip tie. Her wrists were bound together and she had zip ties stuffed down her throat. She had ply marks and bruises on her body and her teeth were broken. The medical examiner determined that she had been beaten over 100 times and her cause of death was from a combination of factors, including asphyxiation, blunt force head trauma and a gunshot wound. Authorities determined that Benjamin brutally beat, shot, and killed Jacqueline at his home in the 1900 block of Wildwood Lane in Anchorage, then loaded her body into a car with the help from his brother. Judge Andrew Peterson said that Benjamin tortured her and exhibited extreme deliberate cruelty. The level of cruelty is unimaginable, he said. He argued that he believed Benjamin's family was involved because his mother heard the beating and murder of Jacqueline, yet never helped. Benjamin's brother helped him clean up the scene and get rid of the evidence, he said. When investigators searched Benjamin's home, they found over 30 grams of drugs including meth, heroin, cocaine and over $125,000 in cash. Besides the drugs, detectives found zip ties similar to the ones found on Jacqueline. They found a brass bed in the basement with bent and broken bars. The mattress was found with blood stains, a bullet hole and bullet fragments. They also found bloody cleanup supplies and a broken collapsible baton in a shed. The motive of the killing was not clearly established during the trial. Benjamin's mother and brother both pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution and tampering with evidence. Benjamin previously served 9 years in federal prison after he was arrested in 2003 for pointing a gun at Anchorage police officers and for selling drugs. A friend of Jacqueline, Vanessa Wolf, remembers Jacqueline as someone who struggled with mental illness, alcoholism and drug use, but who would share what little she had. If someone was hungry and she only had food for herself, she would give it. If someone was thirsty, she would help them. If someone needed clothes, she would get them clothes. She was a very caring person. She said that Jacqueline mostly lived on the streets and struggled to get by in life, but when she smiled, she had a star quality about her. She said that Jacqueline could walk into a room and light it up because the smile was so beautiful. She was an angel on earth, and she's an angel now, she said. A co-operator of the daycare facility has been arrested after allegedly touching a child inappropriately. 55-year-old Robert Neese and his wife Vicky Neese run the Junior Jungle Daycare at 908 South State Street in Kendallville, Indiana. Authorities said that in July of 2022, a detective with the Kendallville Police Department was notified by the Department of Child Services of possible child molesting. The department indicated that the parent of the child victim said the child was touched inappropriately while at the Junior Jungle Daycare. A child forensic interview at the Bill Lewis Child Advocacy Center interviewed the child victim. The child said that Robert licked her butt and that he does it all the time, and that he licked her in the toy room and in the bathroom. The child also said that Robert licks her mouth and that Robert and her were alone with her pants down when these acts occurred. Later, the child victim was examined at the Sexual Assault Treatment Center in Fort Wayne. The detective interviewed Robert a few days later, and he denied any inappropriate touching. On Wednesday, the 27th of March 2024, Robert was arrested at the Junior Jungle Daycare and was charged with child molesting. He was then released on a $2,500 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. A man has been charged with possessing multiple videos of children being abused. 38-year-old David Wojciech Jr. of 3700 block of West Clover Avenue in McHenry, Illinois is charged with 10 counts of possession of child sexual abuse videos. He is accused of possessing video reproductions on a computer of videos showing children being sexually abused. In one video, a child younger than 10 was blindfolded and crying during the abuse. The Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force program reported receiving a cyber tip that a McHenry resident had been downloading child pornography. This information led to the investigation conducted by the McHenry Police Department and the Illinois Attorney's General Office, where interviews were conducted and evidence collected. On Monday the 1st of April, David was arrested at his home without incident. After a hearing on the afternoon of Tuesday the 2nd of April, Judge Michael Keemel found no probable cause to detain David pre-trial, and he was released from the county jail with conditions. He's due back in court on the 30th of April. If convicted, he faces between 2 to 5 years in prison. However, probation is also a potential sentence. The investigation into the matter continues. A 27-year-old man is behind bars for killing his elderly roommate and injuring his girlfriend while she was visiting. At 12:02 p.m. on Sunday the 31st of March, authorities responded to a home in the 7600 block of Canberra Way in Riverside, California on reports of a shooting. When officers arrived, the suspect, 27-year-old Christopher Jacob Lennox, was pointed out to police and he was quickly detained. Law enforcement entered the house and found 75-year-old Robert Joe McGinn unresponsive with gunshot wounds. Despite attempting life-saving measures, he died at the scene from his injuries. Police also found a woman across the street with gunshot wounds. She was treated by paramedics and transported to a local hospital, where she remains in a critical condition. Investigators learned that Christopher and Robert lived together with other roommates at the home. Christopher's girlfriend was visiting him, and they got into a dispute. Christopher grabbed a gun and shot his girlfriend before she fled across the street. Robert then came out of his room, and Christopher shot him as well. Officers recovered a handgun inside the residence they believe was used in the shooting. Christopher was arrested and charged with murder, attempted murder, domestic violence and weapons violations. He remains held at the Riverside County Jail on a $1 million bail. 53-year-old Larry Hawkins is behind bars after fatally shooting his son. At just before 8 p.m. on Saturday the 23rd of March, authorities responded to the 3500 block of Russack Drive in Killeen, Texas on reports of a shooting. When officers arrived on scene, they found a woman holding towels on the chest of a bleeding man who had been shot. Life-saving measures were performed, but were unsuccessful, and the victim was pronounced dead at 8:38 p.m. The man shot was identified as 26-year-old Deontay Hawkins, Larry Hawkins' son. Police spoke to the woman, identified as Deontay's girlfriend, who told authorities that she and Deontay were at Larry's house. She said that Deontay went downstairs when Larry came home, and she recorded their interaction from upstairs. An argument broke out between the father and son about the son owing the father money. During the argument, the girlfriend heard a loud gunshot and a second gunshot a short time later. The girlfriend ran downstairs to find Deontay suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. Police found the weapon on scene. Larry told authorities that Deontay attacked him and he shot his son in self-defense. Investigators said that Larry showed no signs of being in a physical struggle and was subsequently arrested that same night. Larry was charged with first-degree murder and was booked into the Bell County Jail, where he remains held on a $150,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 65-year-old Pamela Harville has been arrested for fatally shooting her husband at their home. On the night of Tuesday, the 2nd of April, authorities responded to a home at 3414 Millville Oxford Road in Riley Township, Ohio, on reports of a disturbance. When officers arrived, they entered the residence and found a deceased man with multiple gunshot wounds. Authorities said that Pamela purposefully shot her husband several times in his body and head, causing his death. She was taken into custody and charged with aggravated murder and booked into the Butler County Jail. On Thursday the 4th of April, she appeared in court before her arraignment. She said that she has hired a defense attorney and that attorney is Donald Trump. She then told court workers that she wasn't feeling well and was having chest pains and was unable to move to the defense table. Shortly after, Pamela fell out of her chair to the ground, complaining that she was suffering a heart attack. Medics responded to the courtroom and took her to a local hospital for treatment. Pamela's bond was originally set at $100,000, but the judge raised it to $250,000. She's scheduled to reappear in court on the 11th of April. The motive of the killing is unclear, and authorities have not released the victim's name until the coroner's office investigation is completed.